All right, guys, we are back. This is the LoudMouth MMA Podcast Network. It is Sunday night. This is usually the time that I tape the recap show, if you're a frequent listener to the LoudMouth MMA Podcast Network. But last week, while I was taping with Drake Riggs, I said I had a special announcement dealing with the LoudMouth MMA Podcast Network. If you clicked on the notes, you've already seen the name. This is the brand new show. It's called the Shillan and Duffy Show. That is our big announcement. It's something we've been working on for a long time. The LoudMouth MMA Podcast Network is super excited to announce that we are now partnering, which, in my opinion, the best MMA website in history, and of that, of course, is Sherdog.com, and we are new partnership with Sherdog. We are part of the Sherdog Radio Network. We're super excited. Now, the first thing you say is, well, you know my name if you listen to the show. Obviously, I'm Keith Shillan. Well, who is the Duffy side? He's the guy that I've done the recap show with before. He is the senior editor of Sherdog.com. He is Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, is this the greatest day? Is this the greatest day of your life?
I mean, it's definitely top 5, and I say that as someone who has 5 kids. So, I mean, one of them's getting bumped.
So
one of their births.
Which kid has got bumped out for the radio network?
Adam. Sorry, bud.
Sorry. Poor. Now, where's Adam on the list? Is he like the youngest, the middle?
He is second to last. But because I'm old, he is 18 years old. I mean, he's an adult. He doesn't care about this stuff anymore.
Oh, there you go. So he's moved on. So sorry, Adam, you have been bumped out. So just to give you guys a little idea of what's going to happen, pull back the curtain a little bit. So this week we're going to do the recap show. This is not going to be just a recap show. We're hoping that this takes off to do many things. When I was talking, I'm going to completely pull back the curtain. When I was talking to Mike Fridley about possibly partnering and getting the relaunch of Sherdog Network, I said, if I do it, I want Ben Duffy. I want Ben Duffy to be my partner. So he graciously said yes, and Ben also graciously said yes. And our hopes is to not just do a recap show, but do many shows. But Ben, let's start it. I mean, the people don't want to hear any more of the background stuff, so let's get right to it. UFC 250 went down this past Saturday at the UFC Apex in an empty arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Amanda Nunes defending her featherweight title against Felicia Spencer. Ben, I felt this way about the card heading. I said, wow, it's a really deep card. I'm intrigued with every fight. Then I get to the main event, and I was like, but then you lost me at the main event. What was your initial thoughts heading into the card?
Pretty much the same as you. Very stacked card. Really, the best card top to bottom since their last pay-per-view, since 249. I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but yeah, I mean, the featherweight title fight was the champ against the most deserving contender they could find. It just so happens that division is in a state that this was the most deserving contender they could find. I don't mind that because, I mean, I want to see greatness. I think it's cool when crazy, chaotic stuff happens, but I also just like to see the greatest fighters do their thing. And, sometimes it's kind of like they've just got to take on whoever's available. I mean, if you look back at Anderson Silva's title reign, some of those dudes, even at the time, they were like, is Talas Leches, is Patrick Cote the best we can find for him? He fought him, he beat him, and it becomes part of the resume. Maybe that's how we'll look at this for Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. I mean, you think about all the all-time greats. You think about like John Jones when he fought Vitor Belfort and Chael Sonnen. You go to Demetrius Johnson fighting John Moraga and Ali Bagatinov, and George St. Pierre had some fights that no one was, Dan Hardy. I mean, no one was really that excited about that matchup. So I completely understand. Like, this is just adding names to her resume at this point for Amanda Nunes. But I don't know if it's fair to compare Felicia Spencer to, like you said, you mentioned Patrick Cote, because if being on a one-fight winning streak and beating Zara Farn doesn't deserve a title shot, like, what does? I mean, that's what we got right now in the featherweight division. Let's talk about the actual fight. We had Amanda Nunes. I mean, there's nothing else to say about it. She is no-brainer the greatest fighter of all time. She went against Felicia Spencer, and I said before this fight, there's no way Felicia Spencer wins. Amanda Nunes is better in every single way possible. The only thing that I thought that Felicia Spencer might have on Amanda Nunes was just a pure strength advantage, being that she is a true featherweight. But she's a thick woman. As nice as I can say, she's not small. And even that wasn't true, as many times Amanda Nunes was just ragdolling her, throwing her to the ground with ease. I know you picked Amanda Nunes, but did you expect it to be as one-sided as it was?
I did not expect it to be one-sided in the way it was. I mean, if you look at the Sherdog staff pick'em, 17 of us, everyone picked Nunes, 15 of us picked her by knockout, and most of the people picking knockout picked first or second round. I picked third round, which I believe you did as well.
Yeah, that's the round I picked.
And obviously that didn't happen. And obviously Spencer is a rugged woman. I mean, she took Cyborg's best for 3 rounds, and maybe we should have seen this coming. But the thing that impressed me about Nunes is, I mean, even after it was obvious that Spencer had nothing for her, Nunes never put it on cruise control. She never just looked like she was sparring or pot shotting. She was trying to win that fight in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. You know, like she was still going for the kill. Like when she went, was it the end of the 3rd or the 4th where she like jumped on her and was working for the rear naked choke, like as the horn went?
The round went. Yeah, I think. Like, I think that would have been the. Is that when Felicia stood up and she had the big hematoma?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the 4th round.
Yeah, end of the 4th
round.
Like there are a lot of champs, great champs, who by that point in a 5-round title fight would have just been kind of styling and thinking about the rest of their weekend.
Yeah,
and Nunes was still trying to finish that fight.
I mean, that's what John Jones has done a lot of times. You think about, you know, the Anthony Smith fight, he kind of put it on cruise control. Yeah, I agree. I do think she tried taking her out, and I think you had a great word that you described, Felicia Smith. I think rugged is a perfect word because that's exactly described. Like the gap in athleticism was as big of a gap of any title fight pay-per-view that I can think of. Like, do you remember a time where someone was that more advanced in just pure athleticism than these two?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, obviously, Nunes is a striker by trade first, even though she is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, whereas Spencer is a grappler first. But just the difference in their striking, not just in how sharp and schooled they were, but just how slow and kind of awkward Spencer looked compared to Nunes. And a lot of that is from their backgrounds, and then a lot of it is just raw athleticism. Nunes is, I mean, I don't want to move into Rogan territory and be like, this is not just a once in a lifetime, but a once in human history fighter. But she's so by far the best woman we've ever seen do this thing that I'm almost thinking to what would it take for someone else to approach this? You know, because Valentina Shevchenko is what, like 30 years old? She has all the time in the world, but think of what she would have to do to like match Nunes' legacy in the next 5 years. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't think she can. I mean, simply the fact that she's already down 2-0 to Amanda Nunes. But besides that, the names that she has to rack up, because Nunes has taken out legends. Like she's not just on this crazy run, but if we were ranking the top, say, 10 greatest female fighters of all time, she might have taken out 6 or 7 of them, you know, off the list.
She has finished every woman who has ever had a bantamweight or featherweight belt in the UFC or Bellator. She has finished every single one of the others.
Yeah, and if we can get her to go against what's the girl there that won the won the Ultimate Fighter, the one who actually held the title before Shevchenko. We all forget. They stripped her. And Nico Montana. We need to have her face Nico Montana, so then she can also have all the champions of the UFC flyweight division too. It's absolutely unbelievable what she's doing. Now, I got to ask you this question, and this is really like trying to look, because I don't want to get in the X's and O's of this fight because it was so one-sided. So I know I'm trying to dig to find your question, but is it possible for Amanda Nunes to actually be better at featherweight than she is at bantamweight?
Oh, I know. I think she absolutely is. I'm happy you asked that. I think she's better at featherweight. I mean, part of it obviously is that it's a much less crowded division. There are only 6 women that have fought in the UFC women's featherweight division since the beginning of 2019. I mean, you can name them all. It's Megan Anderson, Cyborg, Spencer, Zara Ferrando Santos, and Norma Dumont. That's all. So obviously it's a more shallow division, but she herself, she's still like long and rangy, even compared to featherweights. Since obviously in a lot of cases it's the same women. Most of Cyborg's victims were bantamweights during her reign. But the only thing that was any kind of weakness or Achilles heel for her is gone. Because at bantamweight you could always go, well, what if she punches herself out and starts to run into a little bit of gas problem? She is hydrated, fat, and happy at 145, and she is a fucking steamroller.
Yeah, and if we talk about, the other thing always happens, if you go up, it might help your cardio, but it might zap your power. Your power might not go with it. Her power obviously has gone. I mean, I just asked Chris Cyborg. I mean, she starched Chris Cyborg in the first round. And think about the statement, because I agree exactly with you. I actually think she looks better at featherweight. Think about the statement we're saying right now by saying Amanda Nunes might be better at featherweight than bantamweight. Bantamweight's the division that she starched Ronda Rousey in the first round. That's the one that she, starched Holly Holm, high kick, knocked her out, where she just ran through Jermaine Duranami, where she ran through Miesha Tate, where she beat Valentina Shevchenko twice. But the speed between her and the rest of the division, it's huge. The athleticism. Yep. I mean, really, when we talk about actual challengers, the only challenger to Amanda Nunes is Chris Cyborg in Bellator, who she beat in the first round by knockout. I mean, that's – and the other option, and I don't want to go to who's next yet, but the other option is people talking about Valentina Shevchenko, a girl that she's beaten twice already. So let's do this. This fight went 25 minutes. Do you agree with this statement? I believe this fight was over when Felicia Spencer missed her first takedown. When she went for a takedown and started getting elbowed and kneed, after, I think it was about 3 minutes in, where she finally got to the clinch area where she wanted and she had no success and got beat up there. After that, Felicia Spencer, in my opinion, just went on survivor mode. Am I right or am I wrong?
I would agree with you. I would say that by the time the first round was winding down, the only question left in my mind was, what round will the finish come, if it comes? But it was no longer, are Spencer's takedowns going to work? Is she going to be able to muscle her in the clinch? Like, that was all gone. So yeah, it was just academic at that point.
Yeah. So it's funny that you said that, because I was thinking the same thing. So it was in the second round. I had Amanda Nunes third round. I texted a friend, I have him third round. And I was hoping, I was like, all right, man, this fight's over. She's going to put her on this round. Come on, make it to the third round. I was like rooting for her to make the third round, because I didn't think, okay, she makes it to the next round. She ain't making it past that. And yeah, I was really surprised that. Now, I scored the fight 50-43. I know I gave a 10-8 round in the fourth. I don't remember which other round. It might have been the third round. It might have been the second where I gave 10-8. How did you score the whole fight?
Offhand, I think it was 50-43 or 50-42. Like, I can't remember whether I gave 2 or 3 10-8 rounds. But yeah, like, I remember the third and fourth being the ones that were definitely 10-8.
Yeah. So the reason why I asked that, so think about it, you might have went 50-43, 50-42. Now, this is the gap. We're talking, I'm saying 2 rounds 10-8. You're saying 2 or 3 rounds 10-8, and I'm okay with that. I've seen some people on Twitter going 50-41. I mean, given
two of Sherdog's scorers went 50-41.
There you go. So 2 Sherdog scorers gave 4 out of the 5 rounds 10-8. And this is why I'm going to say I'm so blown away by the Amanda Nunes. Is this even a top 5 performance in her career?
Nope. Not even. No.
So let's think about that for a second. We're saying 2 Sherdog. Who were the writers?
Jay and Tristan.
Okay, Jay and Tristan. 2 of the most respected guys in MMA. 2 of the most respected guys in Sherdog. 2 guys that I think both me and you think of the world of. We think these are not guys who don't know how to score. They score every week. These guys are the best. 2 guys scored 4 out of 5 rounds, 10-8 for Amanda Nunes. And we're both in agreement saying this is not even a top 5 performance in her career. Like, how good is this girl?
Yeah, it was a great performance. She did exactly what she should have done to someone that was as overmatched as Spencer, but I mean, Spencer is probably her least credible opponent in 4 or 5 years.
No, I think Raquel Pennington would be up there. I mean, I agree with it, but yeah. I think I feel her and Raquel Pennington are kind of like in that same class, like, the same grouping. If I was grouping them.
If Spencer were a bantamweight, she'd probably be 3 or 4 wins away from a title shot.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. But sure. Yeah, like Raquel Pennington's run to get to the title was much better than Felicia Spencer because she beat Megan Anderson 3 fights ago. Another narrative that came out was not nearly as prominent as it was in the Anthony Smith-Glover Teixeira fight, but there was a big narrative coming out. Should Felicia Spencer's corner, should they have thrown in the towel? Now, I think when she makes it through the 25 minutes, they did a very good job on her forehead getting the swelling down between the 4th and the 5th round. And, there isn't a stoppage. Obviously, the critics aren't as vocal, but there was a lot of people on Twitter saying that the towel should have been thrown. There's no reason for her to come back out. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Not in this case. I still think we're suffering a little bit from the empty arena thing where these beatdowns sound so visceral and so grueling because it's so quiet. So, I mean, you're hearing the heavy breathing. You're hearing the grunt when somebody gets punched to the body. You're hearing like the squeak of like fabric and leather when they're clinched up against the fence. And in that environment, these beatings like sound just so much more immediate and emotionally jarring than they otherwise would. I mean, the Teixeira Smith fight was such a savage beating, but if we'd had, Stipe Miocic versus Mark Hunt in an empty arena, or any of the second or third Kane versus JDS fights, can you imagine what those would have sounded like? I think we're getting a new perspective on these protracted beatdowns because of how we're watching them.
Yeah, and I don't want to do this, Carb, I'm going to do it anyways. I think there's also a little sexism in that, where we don't like seeing a woman get beat up. Like, we're a lot, we call for someone to throw in the towel a lot easier when it comes to seeing a woman getting beat up than it is a man. I think that has something to do with it, and it's probably a natural bias that I do, probably. I have daughters. I don't want to see my daughters get beat up, so I kind of feel like we kind of do that. Let me ask you this question. The title of greatest female, that's dead and buried. I think Scott Coker is the only person on planet Earth who is not saying she's the greatest because he's got Cyborg on the roster. But do we start asking the question where she ranks all time in general, with the men included?
With the men included, it's an interesting question because I was kind of thinking about that just today. At what point do we stop saying she's the greatest female fighter of all time? And do we just say, you know what, she's one of the 5 greatest fighters of all time, period? And the only question is strength of schedule. Like, obviously, she's destroying everyone that she's fighting, but where do those people stack up in, compared to the 10 or 12 people that John Jones fought during his best run, or George St. Pierre, Demetrius Johnson, Fedor Emelianenko? And the thing is, if you're talking about Demetrius Johnson and Fedor Emelianenko, they've got more holes in their strength of schedule than Amanda Nunes does. Demetrius, because it was such an underdeveloped division when he was dominating it. Fedor, because he was in Pride, where he'd fight, 1 or 2 tough, legitimate opponents and then get a circus fight against Zuluzinho, another serious opponent or 2, and then, he'd get a professional wrestler who could semi-fight. So,
yeah.
And I say that as a huge Fedor fan, but he had certain...
Sure.
How long did we think he was the best heavyweight in the world, and how many times did he actually defend the Pride title? I think like 4.
Yeah, and he was fighting, when we was fighting middleweights, he was fighting Matt Lindland, and and like you said, he had all those freak show fights. He fought Mark Hunt coming off a loss when Mark Hunt, and he had like a year of MMA experience. Yeah, so I think it comes down to her skills versus the skill gap. Now, obviously, when we compare men and women, obviously the skills. She can't do things Demetrius Johnson can. She can't do things that John Jones can because men are different than women. I'm not breaking ground here. I'm not a scientist. I think it's pretty much accepted that men are generally stronger. They're going to be faster. That's how we were made.
Right.
That says, but then the argument is, what is her skill gap compared to the rest of her competition? When we talk about other sports, it's usually, LeBron James can play in any era of basketball.
Sure.
But could Bill Russell play in today's NBA? It's usually accepted, no, probably not. That's what it kind of feels like. But how you compare people over, Bill Russell versus LeBron James or whatever, Jim Brown versus Emmitt Smith, or one of these. You usually compare them versus their competition and how well did they dominate. Like Babe Ruth dominated the world of MLB more than Mike Trout does today.
Sure.
So the question is, if we compare her like we do other sports, then we would have to say her gap between the rest of them is probably greater than anybody else. You get what I'm saying? Like her gap of skills compared to her competition is better than John Jones' gap of skills versus his competition.
Yes. Even at his absolute most dominant, people are having, we're having moments of success against Jones. And now he's to the point where he's almost looking vulnerable. I don't know if he's going to lose his next fight. I doubt he's going to lose his next fight considering who it's probably going to be, but we're seeing that he's ripe for it. Whereas right now she is just steamrolling everybody. And yeah, the gap in skill, the gap in accomplishment between her and the people she's fighting, between her and the second best person in either of her divisions, between her and the second best female mixed martial artist of all time is gaping.
Yeah, and so I want to ask this question because the listeners like to do that. I've seen rankings where they rank females in with men, and the only reason I'm asking that question is because that's what people want to talk about. I personally do not like ranking men versus women. I think they should have separate lists. I don't know another sport where we compare men versus women. Tennis, maybe. I don't know. Does Serena Williams get compared against? This shows me how bad I am at other sports. But does she get compared against who's the top tennis player in the world for men?
Yeah, you're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, Andre Agassi. I know he's not around anymore, but you know what I mean. Like, does that happen in other sports? Like, I don't know.
And no, I don't think they do.
So we do that in MMA. Like we try to rank them, and then to me it's like, well, if she is going to be compared, then she's got no brainer top 5. She has to be if you're going straight off like how well they dominate. But I don't like when we do when I also write Vacation Press and they do pound for pound rankings. I was the flag bearer that we leave women out of it. Put a note that we leave women out of it. We shouldn't compare the sexes. But I just wanted to bring that up because people. They like to discuss this, so we give the people what we want. So let's do some matchmaking.
Okay.
Who the hell do you put a man in? I'll go first. Irene Aldana? Is that it? Is that like? I mean, it's got to be, right? And she falls in the same exact category we're saying. We're just adding wins. We're just adding to the dominance. We're adding to her streak, which is now 11 wins in a row. She's been undefeated for nearly 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, it would be tough to justify because she's coming off. I mean, she won her last fight, but she lost the one before that. But assuming that Nunes is not going to just take some serious time off, which was what she was kind of alluding to in the post-fight presser, the one I'd want to see her fight is Macy Chiasson. And the thing about Chiasson is she fights at both bantamweight and featherweight, but most women who fight at both bantamweight and featherweight are bantamweights. Chiasson is a big woman. I mean, she's about 6 feet tall. She's got a frame, where like she's not skinny. She's like lanky and has long limbs, but she's got shoulders and she has muscle mass to her. So she's someone who looks like she could physically hang in there with her. And the thing for her is kind of like I said, Spencer wouldn't be within sniffing distance of a title shot if she were a bantamweight. I mean, if Shillan wants a title shot at bantamweight, she's probably got to win 3 or 4 fights. If she wants a title shot at featherweight, she could have it next.
They're going off the Ultimate Fight. I don't hate that. It's definitely an out of the box. It's not what I thought of, but I don't hate that answer, especially with the gap of time taken off. If she does leave for a year, the thing is, I mean, like you said, she lost to Lena Landsberg not that long ago. But what I like to mention is if she fought Felicia Spencer right now at 145, who's the favorite? Macy Chiasson or Felicia Spencer? I mean, your hesitation, I think, right there kind of at least proves my point what I wanted to say. Like, we don't think of Macy Chiasson right now as a contender, but the very fact that the girl we just saw, which was the no-brainer number one contender to Amanda Nunes, we don't know who the favorite would be. That was my point at 145.
Yeah, I mean, I just thinking of it because I agree. Like, there are definite ways that Felicia Spencer could beat her, and I don't even know whom I would favor until I started watching a little more tape. Just that she would offer a totally different look to Nunes than Spencer did. Her avenues to victory would be different. Like, she has a good ground game, but she's also, a much more developed striker and has much better reach than Spencer does. So, like, even if I don't know if I'd favor her against Spencer, it's not a straight math thing because we're talking about their respective chances versus Nunes.
Yeah, I think obviously she's no longer with the UFC, but if Kat Zingano was still in the UFC, that would have to be the matchup. Being that that's the last girl to beat Amanda Nunes, you'd have some kind of story. I think the UFC should have kept her just for that. Like that, oh crap, we have nobody left. Okay, now it's time for Kat Zingano. Sure, she looks terrible lately, but at least we got some kind of story right now with Macy Chiasson, or who I think will be the person, Irene Aldana. I think that's who I would probably give the matchup to. You mentioned that Amanda Nunes might take some time off. She's 3 months from now. Her girlfriend is supposed to give birth to a baby, making her a mother. I think this is the first time where I think it'd be a good thing for a champion to leave for a while. Maybe get some smoke and mirrors where that, put the champion away for a while and someone can rise above the ashes and kind of give a little hope and we can build off that. But until then, I don't see anybody. As far as Felicia Spencer, who she should face next, I mean, whoever, any featherweight alive that's not signed, bring her in, I guess. She's fought everybody, right?
I mean, yeah, she's fought everybody. We've got some young people coming up. I mean, the girl who comes from New England, from your part of the country, and just signed with Bellator within the last year.
Jessie Mealy.
Yeah, Jessie Mealy. She's another one where, I mean, she's still not a finished product as a fighter, but it's the same thing as when I was looking at Cyborg like 3 years ago. Just give me someone who's up and coming who at least is an actual featherweight in body.
Yeah.
And Mealy's another one who's like, she's a big, strong woman.
I would actually say I'm friends with Jessie. Like,
okay.
I've seen her on the scene a million times. We've talked before I was a media member. I loved Jessie Mealy. I would love to see her win a major title. If I'm a manager of Jessie Mealy, I would be scared for her safety. There's still that huge gap. The other name that really kind of stands out, and this might be the angle where you could market, would be Megan Anderson, because Megan Anderson is so much bigger. I mean, she is so big. You can try to market this like giant of a woman. You can do this like Godzilla on the scene. How does she get by the reach? And be like, well, how everyone gets by the reach of Megan Anderson. That's how. But maybe that's how you sell. I don't know. We're just throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks.
We really are. I mean, this is really just an extended tribute to Amanda Nunes because we're just naming, people who might be able to build up enough of a head of steam that she could take a year or two off and come back, and it would at least be an interesting matchup. That's, hail the queen.
Yeah. Speaking of taking a year off and coming back, we have the comeback of Cody Garbrandt in the co-main event. He got a spectacular walk-off knockout at the very last second of the second round. I think we have 2 knockout of the year contenders on this just card alone. Cody Garbrandt's knockout of Rafael Sancho. I don't know, the question I'm going to ask him here is, I don't see anything beating this. Like, this is one of those, holy crap. I tweeted out, it gets more impressive every single time they show the replay.
Yep.
Is this, if you're that guy who wanted to drop $1 million on Manny Nunes, if you could drop $1 million, does any knockout beat this one for knockout of the year?
No, I mean, as soon as this one happened and we'd seen the replay a few times, my question had already jumped to, where does this rank among the greatest knockouts I've ever seen? And I'm not even ready to address that, but it was no longer a question of knockout of the year. It was like, well, is this the top 5 knockouts I've ever seen or the top 10? Unbelievable. And I would have bet you good money right after the O'Malley fight that was going to be the knockout of the night.
Oh, no brainer. I mean, we were talking. I was adding that one. I don't want to get too far ahead to the O'Malley one, but I'm putting O'Malley in the at least a nominee for knockout of the year, and then Cody Garbrandt's knockout is one of the best I've ever seen. It was one of those holy shit moments where and this was up there. So Cody Garbrandt has had a turn unlike any fighter in recent history that I can remember, where he had that moment against Dominic Cruz when he won the title that was just everybody's eyes jumping out. Wow, did we just see Dominic Cruz, an all-time great, get absolutely thrashed, where suddenly everyone was jumping head over heels for Cody Garbrandt. Then he lost 3 fights in a row, and everyone was done. Now he has this spectacular knockout on the, losing to Pedro Munoz as the lowest point where he looked terrible, to the highest point being Dominic Cruz. Where are you putting Cody Garbrandt? Are you leaning more towards the Dominic Cruz, or you didn't learn enough and you're still on the Pedro Munoz loss side?
As incredible as the knockout isn't what I'm really focusing on when I think about Garbrandt. Because the thing is, terrible Garbrandt was always still capable of doing that to anybody. The guy has arguably the best punching power in the history of the bantamweight division. And even at his worst, he still had it. Just he was being drawn into firefights that his chin couldn't weather. What encourages me about the Asuncao fight is that Garbrandt was more measured, more strategic, more relaxed the whole time. I mean, the crazy thing about that knockout is the way he set it up with like the little feint. And of course that's been beaten into our skulls because, Daniel Cormier illustrated it, to us and couldn't, stop telling us how awesome it was. But He's right. It was awesome. And it's not something that the Garbrandt of his last 3 fights would have been able to pull off, because the moment he got tagged, he was just, swinging. And he was very measured in the first round. Like, Asuncao's a guy that he's not a spectacular kickboxer, but he's a guy that puts pressure on his opponents and punishes them for mistakes. Like if you go in and just start swinging wild on Asuncao, he'll make you pay. And Garbrandt won the first round too. So, and he was on his way to winning the fight. Even like the second round was a 10-9 round before Garbrandt killed him, with a second left. So, I'm more encouraged, if anything, by everything that led up to that knockout. And the knockout is just a nice little, cherry on the sundae.
Yeah, I really don't know where I feel about Cody Garbrandt right now. I want Cody Garbrandt to be back. I want him to be successful. Whether you love him, you hate him, he's exciting. When he goes off the rails, like how people got underneath his skin, and remember when he had a feud with Dominic Cruz, but then he got into a fist fight with Jeremy Stevens, and then he was flustered and commentating with Dominic Cruz. Like, I loved everything. When he was grabbing TJ by the throat, I loved him going off super hot over the smallest little thing. I want him in the limelight. I want him in big matches. I want him in feuds. But you made a great point, which I actually wrote the notes down, is that even bad Cody Garbrandt had moments in those 3 losses. I mean, the first fight against TJ Dillashaw, he almost starts TJ in the first round. TJ might have got saved by the bell. Pedro Munoz, he got rocked in that exchange. So we have seen moments, but he was poised in this fight. But my question is, did Rafael Sancho give him those abilities? Like, Rafael Sancho is a outside kickboxer low output, high defense, wants to win a technical battle. He's not a junkyard dog type that's going to go in there, take the fight at him, make him brawl, make him swing hard. Not that I think he could beat Cody Garbrandt, but like a Brian Kelleher is a guy that you might have such a gap on him in athleticism, on speed, like we saw Cody Stamen. But Brian Kelleher's style is he's going to take the shots, he's going to keep coming forward, and he's going to make you work. Rafael Sancho was not making Cody Garbrandt work. He was giving him the exact fight where Cody Garbrandt like thrives in. Sit on the outside and just use your speed, kind of flush the pocket when you're ready, get out before the counters. I mean, like, it was just so obvious, like everything, Sancho was doing everything wrong. Right before the knockout, I said to my wife, like, he's got to do something. He's just giving them out. And I picked Garbrandt to win, which was if I'm being shown frustration, like, dude, don't you realize what you're doing is not working? I don't know how I feel about Cody Garbrandt. I think he's a great addition, which is why I've seen every possible, when people throw out names, I've seen every possible from some people want to go right into a title shot. Some people are throwing Marlon Moraes out. Some people are showing Sean O'Malley, different ones. Who, if you're the matchmaker, who would you like Garbrandt? Because I've seen everybody thrown out, from up-and-comers to contenders. Who would you like to see a match against next?
I think he'd be, like, the Garbrandt that we saw on Saturday would be too much too soon for O'Malley. You know, I think he'd crush O'Malley. And I don't think that would do either man much good. I mean, you look at me like
no. I don't know, man. I am swinging the flag. We'll get to O'Malley later. I'm planting my flag on that kid.
Well, I mean, if O'Malley were to beat a former champ like Garbrandt, that certainly fast tracks him in a direction that, he's not headed right now. Because right now the UFC is doing a pretty sensible slow build with him. I think that's high risk, low reward matchup. I mean, if Garbrandt, if we're willing to match a winner with a loser, Garbrandt versus Sandhagen would be fine with me. I would be fine with Moraes. I think that's fantastic, and they're both guys that still have a little something to prove. Like we feel like they're right there in the title picture, but they're definitely a step behind the guys that are on legit win streaks.
Yeah, so I think based on who Garbrandt faced this matchup, and he was on a 3-fight winning streak, and they still matched him against Rafael Sancho, who, after I just rant about being the perfect stylistic matchup for Cody Garbrandt, he's still a tough out for anybody. So I just want to put, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite by saying that, but Rafael Sancho, over the years, we can say that like nobody runs through Rafael Sancho. So I think based on that matchmaking, it showed you that how high the UFC was still on him, which is why I believe you're on the right track, that it's probably going to be a Sandhagen or a Moraes who faces Cody Garbrandt. I'm saying I'm going way down. I'm saying let's not rush this kid. People seemed very happy, besides the knockout, people seemed very happy that Cody Garbrandt got a win. Like, it seemed like people were changing him. Like, I would see people were happy with it. I want to see him go back on a run. Now, the UFC never does this, or hardly ever does. Usually if it happens is if someone gets hurt. I would like them to go get him more favorable matchups, guys that would test him, but he probably should beat, and kind of try to build up a run, get him on 3-4 fight wins before he gets back up in the title picture. So I'm like, give him Ricky Simone. I want him to go against Ricky Simone. That's who I'd match him with.
Okay.
I think you're going to be right. They're going to go with one of the guys you picked, but I would think way outside the box. Now, I want to do Rafael Sancho real quick, because Sancho is what I was saying last week. I don't remember which fighter I was talking about, but when you have a fighter who's declining, who still has a little bit of name value, you have two avenues. You can match him against another veteran that's kind of in the same boat, or what I've always thought the best thing you do is you use their name value to get over the next guy, to be that springboard. I like Ronnie Barcelos as a guy that I've been big on for a while. Like, match them two guys in Brazil, see if Barcelos can take that next step up as a rising star. That's who I would like to see at Sancho face. Who would you match him with?
You know what? I had not thought of that name, but that absolutely works for me, because I mean, at this point, he's lost 3 straight. There are 3 straight to, I mean, 3 really good guys. We still don't know exactly where Garbrandt falls in the whole thing, but we know exactly where Moraes and Sandhagen are. They're right near the top. And you're right. The UFC doesn't usually do it that way, but he's as soon as I was 37, he has to be losing just a little fraction of a step. There are divisions where you can hit your stride and hit your peak at 37. Bantamweight is not one of them. I mean, we've just seen Dominic Cruz kind of show us what happens when a guy in those weight divisions loses just a half a tick, off of his top gear. So yeah, give me Honey Barcelos. Good call.
Yeah, there's another Brazilian. We'll get to this later on, but there's another Brazilian that I agree fits a sunset where you lose a little bit of step and you look terrible. That we're going to get down later. I'm sure you could already figure out who I'm talking about. Going back to the name that I was talking about, I said there was someone who was on a streak. It was Tyron Woodley. I was talking about Tyron Woodley being on the streak that I think you've used him now to build other people. Rafael Sanchez is just a guy that I feel when he retires and we look back on his career, say 10 years after, it's just been one of those guys I think he's just going to be a guy that was much better than the shine he'll get. He won't get the kind of credit for how good he was at one time.
I could not agree more strongly because even before this fight, and I picked Assunção in this fight, and I kind of had a line of thought that assuming he won, if he beat Garbrandt, I was probably going to write my next article about it because he is on the short list of people whose recognition, even in their own time, is more out of step with their actual achievement. You know what I mean? He is maybe the most anonymous perennial top 5 contender the modern UFC has ever seen.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with his style. He's not the most exciting style. I think it goes with his personality. He's not a big talker. I remember him doing an interview with Ariel Helwani, the first time he tried talking. I forgot who he was calling. And it might have been Garbrandt at the time. He was trying to talk himself into a title shot, and it just wasn't him. But speaking of title shots, I think we have our next contender at 135. This is the fight that I think pretty much everybody was saying this is the fight most people was most interested in, and that was the matchup between Aljamain Sterling and Corey Sandhagen, and it was not a match at all. In just 88 seconds, Aljamain Sterling got a submission rear naked choke over Corey Sandhagen. Can I just say this? Can we just remove Jose Aldo from the title shot and just throw Aljamain Sterling in the title shot? Because he deserves it way more than Jose Aldo does. I mean,
far
is there
more.
Any I didn't like that matchup. I didn't like Jose Aldo getting the title shot coming off a loss, and I hate it even more now. Is there who's calling for it? It's not like Jose Aldo sells. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
There's none whatsoever. And it's not even like this is a division that's just desperate for anything. So they fast track an undeserving guy. There is a logjam of people who have been overdue for a title shot. I mean, a year ago, the argument was whether Sterling or Yan was more deserving of the next title shot. And it's a year later, and Yan is now getting it, and Sterling is just still sitting there knocking off other top 5 guys.
Yeah, and this is what I want to say. I think Aljamain Sterling is more deserving not only of Jose Aldo, but Peter Yan too. He's more deserving than both those guys.
He's beaten better people than Yan.
Yes.
Yeah.
What did Sterling do? I mean, to me, Sterling versus Sandhagen made more sense for that being the title match than Peter Yan and Jose Aldo. But let's talk about this matchup. Aljamain Sterling just looked possessed. He came out, he put the pressure on, almost running at Sandhagen. On Last One Standing this week, we talked about the small cage, who it could help, who it could hurt. And I said Aljamain Sterling helped because this is a guy who wants to grapple. Sandhagen's a guy who likes a lot of movement. And I wonder if that was in the back of his head, being that you had Sandhagen is going to have less move, rush him, and as soon as he got his hands on him, took him down, took a slick back take, and his jiu-jitsu game, man, between getting that Sulov stretch against Cody Stamen, now to this submission, this guy, man, he has made leaps and bounds improvements from the days when he lost to like Brian Caraway, and he was like
Yep.
he looked like at one time came in the UFC, he was hyped, he was like the next big thing out of Sarah Longo, and then he like went on this losing streak. We kind of all gave up on him. He was getting clowned when he got knocked out by Marlon Moraes doing the dap thing, and he's done like a 180 where he is back in and. With Henry Cejudo being in silence, to me, he looks like the best 135-pounder in the world. Am I wrong?
I picked Sandhagen going into this one. Again, the kind of theme tonight is I had a miserable night of picking fights. I picked Sandhagen. I recognized that like this was not one of my higher confidence picks, but if Sterling won, that is not how I envisioned it happening. I did not believe anything my eyes were telling me until it actually happened. I agree with you that the small cage helped. I mean, you notice that the takedown and the back take and, most of that finishing sequence took place like while they were mashed up against the cage. They hit a boundary before Sandhagen could, circle out, get away and get Sterling off him. But like when Sterling hopped on his back, I'm like, okay, this isn't that bad. Sandhagen's a good scrambler. He's going to get out of this. When he locked in the first choke that was really just, almost more of a face crank. He was just right over the chin. I'm like, that's fine. Sandhagen's going to get out of this. He briefly got out of it. Then Sterling slapped on the choke. I'm like, God, this is really over, isn't it? Like, I was blown away. It didn't get it of course, on a night that we had that knockout, but it was the most impressive single performance maybe by anybody. Just in terms of how it defied expectations,
Absolutely.
How airtight it was. Because, I'm having to rethink how I thought about Sterling, because I am definitely one of those guys that bought into that narrative that, okay, he's got tons of talent, but he's the type of guy that can drop a fight he shouldn't at any given moment. In fact, when I was talking to Jay Petrie, our associate editor, we were talking about Sandhagen versus Sterling, and I said, when he's on, Sterling might actually be better than Sandhagen in every phase of the game. I just don't know if I'm willing to bet that he's on, especially considering what, upheaval the world is in, what upheaval his city is in, like that his own cornerman can't even get to Vegas to corner him. Like, is tonight the night I'm betting that Sterling is mentally on point? I was wrong. Sterling's a different dude than he was 3 years ago, and I could not be happier for him. He looks fantastic. He's always had star power. You know what I mean? He's got a certain magnetism and charisma.
Sure, he's got the big, he's got the kid and play style hair. He's got
and the
he's
rope
got the
chain.
He's charismatic.
And but it's a character thing, and he's having fun, but most of it's really not at the other guy's expense. And he's like cheerfully willing to admit that like the rope chain is fake, and he's just having fun. Like I do like that about him. Yeah. He's a guy that if they use this time that so many more eyes are on the sport to kind of give him a little bit of a push, he could be a star for this promotion.
Yeah, I think about that Caraway fight was one of those ones where I was just, that fight always stands out to me where I thought he had terrible fight IQ. I'm like, you're giving Caraway the fight you want. Like, get off the cage. Like, that's what Caraway needs. The next fight he gives against a Sun Sao, and I'm like, dude, turn the volume up and you could pull this upset. And he went from this guy with terrible fight IQ to suddenly, when I was going back to that Brett Johns fight, where he was getting Brett Johns to wrestle when he didn't want to, box when he didn't want to. Stamen, he had him guessing. Munoz, he beat Munoz pillar to post, and that was a like 50-50 fight that most people were on. And this one, to me, he's like this huge jump in the sense from like a guy that had terrible fight IQ to a guy that like really gets it. Going back to that first submission where he was going for the rear naked choke, I thought the same thing. He probably is not going to get him to tap from face crank, and he might be wasting his energy.
Yep.
To now, so impressive. And also, let's not forget that he was out with an injury. Like, that's why he didn't. That's why Dominic Cruz probably got the title shot instead of him. Was that they couldn't book him because he had the shoulder surgery, and then I guess he had a hand injury and all this, and then his corner wasn't there. And I was absolutely blown away. And you said it was you said it was probably the most impressive one, but when you throw in those highlight reel knockouts, I think it's the most impressive from a ranking sense. Like, he beat the highest rank. Sandhagen was a guy that a lot of people thought that could win the title one day, and for Sterling to take him out in under 90 seconds, I was absolutely blown away. It will be an absolute tragedy, robbery is something if Aljamain Sterling does not get the title shot. I've said you're on the right. You're with me on this one, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's not do matchmaking when we already know. So Sandhagen, kind of the opposite. Terrible performance. I mean, this is his chance to kind of steal the thunder from Sterling, get himself in a title shot, and he gets ran through. So what do you do with now? You like that Garbrandt fight?
I'd be fine with that. The thing is, I mean, Garbrandt's name value is the whole reason that was the co-main event over, it was a guy coming off 3 losses versus a guy coming off 2 losses in the co-main event over 2 higher ranked guys in the same weight class below him. And that's all on Garbrandt's name value. So, I mean, they're not going to send them all the way back to square one. I'd love to see him taking on Sandhagen because the thing is, like Sandhagen got destroyed, but there were only 1 or 2 turning points there. Like, he didn't have to make many mistakes for that to happen. Once he let Sterling on his back, once Sterling was on his back, like after he fought off the first choke attempt and Sterling just calmed down, took a breath, and tried it again in about 5 seconds, I mean, that fight was over. He wasn't going to survive in that position for another 3 minutes. So it's not like Sandhagen, got totally outclassed by making 10 different mistakes or having a just completely horrible strategy. He made 1 or 2 mistakes, and a guy totally in the zone just didn't give him any out after that.
Yeah.
So his stock doesn't fall too far in my mind. He could turn around and we could see this as an aberration. Like if 3 fights from now, if Sterling's the champion, there's nothing I saw on Saturday that makes me not want to see Sandhagen challenge him in a rematch.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Like if he got beat up for 15 minutes because taken down 6 times, was jabbed over, his range didn't work against Sterling's range, or, he got stuck on the outside with Sterling's kick, stuff like that. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Back to me going crazy about Sterling. You mentioned that when you have a little opening, he can finish you. And that submission threat that Sterling is right now makes it even more exciting to see him fight, being that, if he takes you, I mean, his back takes a slick.
Yes.
So speaking of slick, we had probably the fight that was the less slick of the whole night. Neil Magny versus Anthony Rocco Martin. This is the one that had the most controversial scoring, or at least the most debate. I'm going to say something right now. It might have been with you the last time I said this. The 30-27 scorecard that everyone's going crazy of, it's not a terrible scorecard. The first and second round were toss-ups. Like, I scored it. I gave the first and second round to Rocco Martin, but I am 100% okay with Neil Magny getting those scorecards. So 30-27 for Magny, I'm okay with that. Are you with me or are you against me?
It's not the worst scorecard I've ever seen, but I do disagree pretty strongly with giving Magny the first round. I mean, he outlanded him volume-wise in all 3 rounds, but Martin landed the harder shots on Magny in the first round. I thought it was a pretty clear first round for Martin. I gave Magny the second and the third. Even though I picked Martin going in, I thought Magny did more in the second and third rounds. So, I mean, I'm not like out with the pitchforks over a 30-27, but I was definitely like scratching my head at the time. Nice. I gave Magny the first round and didn't think much more about it after that.
Okay.
Or Martin, sorry.
Yeah. So me and you were the only ones on Sherdog to get that one wrong, as everyone else picked Neil Magny. So we'll have to apologize to the readers as we picked this one wrong. This just comes down to me whether you like the volume or do you like pretty much positional dominance. I think for the most part, Martin had the positional dominance. Like I said, I'm okay with all scoring. But that said, if this was pride scoring, Neil Magny, no-brainer, wins this fight. He had the most dominant round, which when I tweeted out, people were saying, I have it Martin, I have it Magny. I said, well, Magny's probably going to win because he won the third round. So really, he only needs one other round on the judges' scorecards. So that's why, I was shocked that Anthony Rocco Martin made a big deal about his loss. But the plain and simple is Magny's output just broke Anthony Rocco Martin. And again, I actually think the small cage helped Martin early, but hurt him late. And what I mean by that, he wanted to turn into a wrestling match. He wanted to clinch with him. And that gives you the smaller the cage, that gives you more advantage to get that. The bad thing is when you're trying to retreat, there's less room to retreat, and he went full retreat mode, and he couldn't get away from Neil.
Nope. No, like trying to stay out of kicking distance of Neil Magny in a 25-foot cage is a pretty tough proposition. That is a rangy dude, and obviously we don't get a Magny fight without the UFC booth, like talking about like his crazy reach for the division. But there are guys with crazy reach that don't make it work for them. When Magny's game is on, he does. Yeah, and just Martin couldn't get away from him, and he was so tired by the end of it. So yeah, I called that one wrong. I figured he'd be able to move forward, get Magny going backwards where he's not that comfortable, and just beat him with pressure, either by getting takedowns or just by being in his face and landing harder shots, and he couldn't.
Yeah, I was wrong on that. I thought similar. I thought Martin could get some takedowns. I thought he was a better grappler, and I've never really been that big on Neil Magny, so I thought Martin would take him. But look at this. Neil Magny's now on a 2-fight winning streak. He's won 4 out of 5. I didn't ask you who to match Neil Magny with. I didn't ask you. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but do you have a name? Because I feel like this, and I'll sound like a broken record when it comes to welterweight, that anywhere between like 6 through 25 at welterweight, I'm good with pretty much matching anybody. I think it's the best division in MMA. So I'm okay with you put Neil Magny against anybody in that range. Do you have someone specific?
No, I mean, just give me a welterweight coming off a win. If we want someone that would be an interesting style matchup and like a big name for him to take on, give me Anthony Pettis. Because the thing is, like, Magny, it's not just that he loses fights at inopportune times for his own momentum, because obviously anytime you lose a fight, it stops your momentum. But when he loses one, I mean, has he ever lost a close fight? No, he gets rolled up when he loses.
Yeah.
Like
RDA just like made him look like
RDA, Lorenz Larkin. I mean, he's the best performance of too many guys' careers. Like, he's the best performance of best win of Lorenz Larkin's career. He's probably the best win of who's the guy that beat him most recently? Santiago Ponzinibbio. Just when he loses, he makes the other guy look absolutely dynamite.
Did he not land a strike against Damon Maia in like 8 minutes? It was something stupid like that. Like there was total. Or was it Maia beat him up so bad but not winning? There was something silly in that fight where like Maia submitted him in the second round but didn't even land a strike himself or something.
No, yeah, I think Maia beat him
he
without
didn't land
landing
a strike or something. It was something like that. Like a strike wasn't landed by one of them in a absolute one-sided domination.
Yeah.
Every time I think of the welterweight division and I think of that range, the name that always jumps out to me is Jeff Neal. I want to see Jeff Neal, his power and his speed, to see if he could take on, because this power and speed would be on his advantage, but how would he be able to fare against a guy who can grapple, a guy who has range, a guy who has tons of experience, the output,
and just one of the best gas tanks in the division.
Yeah. Like, that would be interesting to me. That's actually, now that I didn't have a name, but now that's the fight I'd like to see. I think, I know Magny, I think he called out Michael Chiesa. He wants that fight. Right, if they want to do that fight, good. Before that, man, Sean O'Malley absolutely, like, Eddie Wineland might still be asleep. He deaded him. There was his, I don't know if you caught, you see his, like, when he got knocked out, his mustache was, like, wiggling, flowing through the air. Man, Sean O'Malley, no, you were saying that you think Cody Garbrandt is too much. I do not want to see Sean O'Malley take that big of a gap. You jump up. But I'm all in on this kid. This is one of the guys, when I was on the Contender Series preview, I liked him when he was on the LFA. The Contender Series, I'm blown away with this guy. This guy's making. I thought his last fight was so impressive. This one is even better. I mean, say what you want about Eddie Wineland, he is a true veteran, tough. Nobody beats up Eddie Wineland like that. I felt like it was the perfect step up. Where you're making a joke. I think this was the perfect step up. And I mean, Sean O'Malley, this was a flawless victory. His feints, his length, his power, his athleticism. And this is what I love most about Sean O'Malley, is his confidence. Like, he has, borderline cocky, but that confidence. And you know who had that confidence like this on their rise up? Conor McGregor.
Yep.
Like, and I'm not calling him Conor McGregor. I'm not saying, but I just see a star in the making. I'm all in on this guy. He wants a new contract with the UFC. He's got one fight left. To me, I think it would be crazy of the UFC to let him get to that one contract, to fight that contract out, to give the possibility that someone could steal him. To me, and it's not likely that someone would steal him, but to me, to even give that possibility, I think that's crazy. Pay this guy, pay him like a star. I'm all, and I guess he's not even asking for star money. He just wants, respected fighter money. I'm all in on Sean O'Malley. Give him what he wants. Are you with me? Are you waving the flag? Or are you more pumping the brakes?
I mean, this one definitely was a moment where I bought in a little bit more. I've always been a little wait and see with them, but I think that kind of like McGregor type energy you see coming off him, I can definitely see that. Also, in the way that his striking style, unorthodox is just kind of a vague and useless word, but there's like a fluidity to his motion, and he just looked a complete step ahead of a good and dangerous striker for as long as he seemed to choose to allow it to last. He's not quite as loud and blustery as McGregor. I was kind of surprised and a little bit impressed at how understated he was in the aftermath. But yeah, the UFC would be foolish to let him fight out his contract. I don't think that's going to happen. O'Malley was pretty clear on that point since then. I mean, he's already talking about pay me fair money, and I have the feeling the UFC will do the smart thing here because they've already been pretty high on his star for a couple of years now.
Yeah, I mean, he's the face of the Contender Series. When you think of the Contender Series, Sean O'Malley is the guy that has, when you go through the different, you think of like the Ultimate Fighter, you got to think of a Forrest Griffin or Diego Sanchez. When you think of the Contender Series, Sean O'Malley, that's the guy. He's 12-0. He's 25. I agree that he doesn't have the personality that Conor has, but to me he has this also like cool, like he has that like smoking weed, like having fun kind of personality. He's like a balance between like Nate Diaz and like Donald Cerrone, like, and I don't know, like super cool. It could be my homie like Donald Cerrone, but still like has that like I want to smoke weed with Snoop Dogg. I think he's a star in the making, and while he doesn't have that personality, that like charismatic trash stuff that Conor has, he's even more flashy than Conor is.
Yeah, and he has a charisma.
Of course. Yeah.
Don't mistake me. He definitely has a charisma. There's something that draws you to him. He's a visually distinct dude. Like great tattoos. His rainbow cornrows look amazing. He's got a wealth of things the UFC can sell about him. Yeah, I mean, as long as he keeps winning, he's a future star in the making. It helps if he wins impressively, but like it never hurt George St. Pierre that he became a decision machine in terms of his marketability. So yeah, everything's looking up for Sean O'Malley.
Yeah,
stay off the juice, buddy.
Yeah, I remember when they did I don't know who he was facing. It was probably the Sigma fight, and he was not embedded, and he was saying things that I was like, that's what we would be saying if the camera wasn't on. Like that's why I started liking him. When I think they showed like Kat Zingano was walking up the stairs, and he's the camera's on. He's like, damn, Kat Zingano's hot as fuck, or something like that. He said, and I was just like, yeah, like every other guy in the world was thinking the same thing, but this guy had the balls to say it right into the camera, knowing it's probably gonna get put out on embedded. Yeah, I'm all in on this guy. Like, I'm not saying he's gonna be a future champion, but it would not shock me. Sky's the limit. I don't think they should go anywhere else. But speaking of going somewhere else, I forgot to mention the last fight, Anthony Rockman Martin. I heard that was the last fight of his contract. I wouldn't if I'm a manager of Rockman Martin. He just seems like a perfect fit for the PFL.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that could just slip in there and make out like a bandit with $1 million minus taxes, later. Because I mean, who really is rewarded by their system? Guys that can get takedowns and just lock a dude down. It's the wrestlers that are winning the $1 million at the end of the year. He's a good enough wrestler, to do that. He's a strong enough, like he's a really good grappler. And I mean, if gas tank is a problem, the fact that the first 2 rounds of the playoffs are 2-round fights can only help him.
Yeah, like the champion of the division last year was Ray Cooper. I mean, I would favor Tony Martin over Ray Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, well, and Ray Cooper won it this time, but the time before that, it was Magomed Karamov, who's just another Dagestani top control special.
Yeah, and he probably would have won again if he wasn't for the injury during the playoffs. He probably would have won again. But you get the point. The point remains.
Yeah, like Cooper is the exception. You know.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to say. I wasn't trying to say. I wasn't trying to argue the wrestling striking thing. I was just saying like this is the top guy in the division, and Rocco Martin is probably better than him. That's what I was just trying to say. Like, and he's got to know he's getting up there age, and he's got to know he's never going to win it. He's not going to hold a major title. He's probably not going to want to go to Bellator, being that the top guy in the division is Douglas Lehman. That's his main training partner.
Right.
I think the PFL would make a lot of sense. Maybe he can rehash the flame with Kayla Harrison if he goes there. Maybe they can get back together. I don't know. Now I'm doing a matchmaker.
Not that kind of matchmaking. Let's.
Let's. So that was the main card. The prelims. Now I was just talking about the guy that I was going crazy for on the Contender Series. The guy that when I did the Contender Series preview and there was a lot of hype, I was not selling was Chase Hooper. As a friend of mine who does betting, I messaged him and he was picking Chase Hooper, and I'm like, Alex Caceres is going to win the fight. Alex Caceres should be the favorite. I don't want to pat myself on the back because I did terrible on a pick. We're going to get to later, so I hate sounding like I'm bragging because I did terrible. But first of all, can we talk about the commentary team? They were making Chase Hooper sound like Gordon Ryan on the ground. Like if he just got Alex Caceres down for 1 second, the fight was going to be over.
It was a weird narrative that they were pushing there because one, Caceres is not a dummy on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the strange thing. It's not like, you know, he was, I don't know, like, you know, prime Dwayne Ludwig or something where it's like, oh, you know, this guy can just get him down. It's all over. Like, yeah, it was weird. They really seemed to be overselling Hooper. You know, maybe, you know, they were handed the future star card by the production team and just like, you know, puff this guy up. But he's got plenty of interesting stuff going for him without having to overstate it just because he's so young. You know, talk about a guy with, you know, kind of a unique personality. But yeah, he's a good grappler that just seemed to have no real urgency about it. I mean, I almost feel like he just like watched himself lose 3 rounds in a row.
Yeah. I haven't seen people overselling the grappling skills of a guy since Mike Goldberg called Travis Lutter the Michael Jordan of BJJ. Chase Hooper, I mean, he's super tough. I'll give him that. Like Caceres hit him with everything, and he didn't. You know, he was still in the fight, but he's not ready. His striking is really bad. Like he had no head movement. He stands straight up. He's not a good athlete. To me, this is a rant I talk about all the time. Is you could have all the be a submission threat all you want. If you don't have takedown skills, you're not going to go far. It's why a guy like Ryan Hall started doing the Imanari role, and he added that to his game. Like Chase Hooper's going to have to find something, but like I said earlier, he's not Gordon Ryan. Like guys can beat him in the grappling. Like this was not that great, and like I don't know. That narrative was bothering me. I don't know where I'm going with this, but he ended up losing the Battle of the Afros. I don't think it'll be the. I think it's going to be the last time Chase Hooper has smaller hair than his opponent.
Yep.
But my favorite thing of this entire matchup was not that Caceres won, but that Caceres was talking about knowing that he's a gatekeeper, but then saying, like, beating Chase Hooper, he's no longer a gatekeeper. Like, so my question is does beating Chase Hooper graduate you beyond gatekeeper status?
No, this isn't even close to his most impressive win. I mean, I get what he was trying to say. Like his thought is, you know, like I know I'm seen, you know, he knows that he's seen as a gatekeeper and being booked like a gatekeeper, but you know, I'm still improving 1% every day. And if you don't watch it, you know, I'm going to be the guy that's actually the contender before you know it. And he's a guy he is still improving. He's still kind of putting things together on some kind of small level. I was impressed at how little of a shit he seemed to give when Hooper did get him to the ground. Because for as much as the booth was talking about, like, all he has to do is get him down and this thing is over, when they went to the ground, Caceres was not panicked. He's like, dude, I like asked for a fight with Crone Gracie. You think I'm scared of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love when one time, I think it was at the very end of the first round, Chase Hooper had Caceres' leg and his knee was past the point of danger. In the booth, and Joe Rogan was making it sound like any second now, like this was Husama Baharis, like he was about to rip Alex Caceres' leg, and he was never even close to being in trouble. But we're gonna move on. I don't want to stay too long on a guy who's now 16-12 in his career. Ian Heinisch, how about this? Ian Heinisch, first round knockout, overhand right, followed up with some heavy ground and pound, and didn't even get a performance bonus. And rightfully so. Like, what would happen that night? I actually agree with it. The best win of his career. He went to Tiger Muay Thai for a little while. They get showed in his striking. He did this. I really like the breakdown of this. They showed his eyes go low, forced Mershad to think it's coming low. Perfectly overhand right, Dan Henderson style. Some weird build-up before this fight. Ian Heinisch was supposed to fight Gerald Mershad. His cornerman tested positive for COVID. Come out that it was a false test. When they retested him, he came back. In between that, they rescheduled. Anthony Ivy.
They signed Anthony Ivy,
Anthony
who's
Ivy
here in Texas. Yeah. And Ivy stayed on roster. He's fighting this coming Saturday.
Yeah, Anthony Ivy was going to come in against Gerald Mershad. Instead, they got Ian Heinisch back in there. Got it first round. To me, there's not much to say. He landed a perfect shot. Good for him.
Yeah, a great performance, and I have got to stop making fun of fighters for going to Thailand to train. It's not just a vacation anymore. People are coming back with new and improved skills.
All right, so now let's go to the fight that stands out to me from the prelims. But we're gonna put this backstory to the side for a second. Let's just talk about the actual technical side. To me, it was such a fun fight. Cody Stamann, Brian Kelleher. This is my style of fight. This is the fight I love. I love pocket boxing, wrestle boxers, throwing down, attacks, body shots. They were switching stances. Brian Kelleher is a guy that, not a great athlete, not good anywhere, but he's always going to make it a tough fight. Even though I thought Stamann was way ahead, Kelleher still had moments that made him work. I just love these kind of. This fight will never be up there for fight of the year or anything like that. But this is just one of those ones where if I watched it again 2 years from now, I'd be like, man, I forgot how good that fight. That was a good fight. So yeah, Stamann looks good. I mean, I like Stamann. I think he's that is a good matchup for a Sun Tzu. If you want to go with Stamann, I like that fight.
This is the only fight on the card that I missed entirely. I had to carve a little block of time out of the card to just eat dinner and take care of a couple things. So this is the one I missed. But
that's it, guys. So I'm going to give out Ben's email right now, and you're going to load him with just evil messages for missing this fight, because I thought this was the best fight on the card. Send him hate mail. Send him Amazon places where he can get TV trays so he can eat next to his TV. This is a fun fight. So check it out. But the thing that obviously stands out is Cody Stamann. A week earlier, his brother died. By far the saddest moment of the entire night was as soon as the last bell rang, the emotion just came out to him instantly, where at one point he was hunched over crying. You could see a guy almost like there was a dam just holding all his emotion. It was just, and then finally when that buzzer went, the dam broke and just let it go, and you could see the agony just fall out of him. It obviously it was a sad moment. It was an inspiring moment for him to be that tough. I don't know, man. He in a post-fight interview, Joe Rogan kind of teared up a second. Brian Kelleher hugged him and was saying dude, you're an inspiration to him in a loss. It was absolutely incredible. So I speak for everybody at Sherdog and everybody at loudmouth condolences to him and his family. I know I can say that for all of us because I know we all think the same way. Good win for Cody Stamann. I don't know how he did it. So, before that, Charles Bird and Maki Pitolo. This was a fun back and forth fight. Some crazy scrambles. Bird, I actually thought he won the first round, and then Bird does what Bird does. He just suddenly, like, any kind of pressure on him, and he just crumbled. Like suddenly, like, Pitolo was like, "Hey, I'm gonna fight a little harder right now," and Charles Bird's like, "All right, I'm out of here."
It was weird. Like I'm not looking for any excuses for him, but yeah, just the way that all the wheels kind of fell off the wagon almost in real time, just like from one 15-second window to the next, just he slowed down, his guard started to drop. Like, yeah, he crumbled. It was the weirdest thing. Like, was he hurt by something? Was he getting tired? Like, I have no idea. But I mean, Pitolo has a hard ceiling. Whether he's going to go back down to welterweight or stay at middleweight, I think there's a hard ceiling to what he's going to become, but he's not the dude that you just want to get lax and like let your guard drop against, he will knock you in the next week.
Yeah. So two things about this. So, this matchup to me is that classic like Blair middleweight matchup where like I feel like middleweight is always like that the whole division for other than the top 4 or 5 guys, for the most part, anywhere from like 9 through the rest of the roster, just like Blair. And that's why I think Pitolo should be at middleweight because he's like welterweight's my favorite division, and Pitolo doesn't fit it. While he would be he's greatly undersized at middleweight, and Charles Bird is probably the right matchup because Charles Bird is also undersized. Man, just Blair, just go to middle, go stay at middleweight. You seem higher on him than I am. I'm not that high in Pitolo.
No, I don't think Pitolo is a future top 10, top 15 guy in either division. Like, there's a hard ceiling on how good he is, but with a name like Coconut Bombs and the ability to like knock out other kind of fringe level UFC guys, he'll stick around for a while.
Yeah, I just like, to me, a ceiling for him is win one, lose one. Like, that's the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, but he's the kind of guy that could carve out a 12 fight UFC career just by winning one, losing one. Because if he loses 2, he's probably not going to get the drop just because he's kind of an interesting dude. Like, yeah, sure. Like he'll be just another guy, but he could be just another guy for a while, especially middleweight.
Yeah, I just feel like, to me, a ceiling is Jared Mershaw, and not the same style, but I mean like that level of person. But yeah, one thing we do the cut list. I'm going to change it up. I'm going to say for someone to get cut, one of us has to nominate him, and we both have to agree.
Okay. I
am throwing Charles Bird on the cut list.
I'm going to have to cheat and take go on.
No, I said wait, it could be multiple. Like, it doesn't have to be one person. It could be multiple people.
Well, no, like I was like, because I was like, okay, I remember him losing to Shabazian last year, but like the guys fought. He fought once in 2019, twice in 2018, and he's 36. Yeah, I mean, we could make some room for someone else to move in and give a shot. Yeah. Yeah, he can go.
Yeah, and he's a Fortis MMA guy, and anybody who has ever listened to this show knows how big I am on Fortis MMA, and he's the captain of Fortis MMA. But he's not good. But speaking of not good, Juicy Formiga did not look good in his matchup against Alex Perez. Alex Perez, to me, was absolutely sensational. Nobody beats up Juicy Formiga like Alex Perez did. He went attacking to the leg right away. Formiga had no answer. Perez was way faster. Had the high output. He was throwing, there was like 4 or 5 punches for every time Formiga threw one. Absolutely sensational. This is a guy who has tons of experience. He's 28 years old. Comes from a high level wrestling background, a high output striker. Now he's taking guys out with leg kicks. This was a eye-opening performance from Alex Perez. I know he skyrocketed up the Sherdog ranking. Oh, I shouldn't say this, but from our private chat, he's going to skyrocket up the Sherdog rankings. He'll probably skyrocket up the UFC rankings. I'm all in on Alex Perez. He looks sensational. Was this more on Alex Perez being, a true contender in the flyweight division, or is this more of the continued decline of Jose Formiga?
Little column A, little column B for sure. But in looking at it, I thought of it as an impressive moment for Perez more than a sign that Formiga has done. Formiga's on talent and ability, probably still a top 10 flyweight, but and I had Formiga in this fight. I thought, this might look a bit like the Figueiredo fight, which is Formiga's last win, where a younger, quicker, faster, bigger, stronger guy, Formiga just outclassed him. Because Formiga's always been a pretty solid technical striker, even when quicker guys could knock him out. And then obviously he is right 1 and 2 with Damian Maia in guys who are able to make their ground game work without explosive takedowns. Guys that are just good at forcing a scramble or taking your back standing and then just ending you. I figured he'd be able to do one of those things to Perez, but Perez was too much. And those leg kicks, dude, usually even calf kicks are an investment in like future attrition and future damage. Those started to tell on him right away. He had no time, nor ability, nor inclination to make any adjustments. I mean, he probably only landed 5 of them, but it was enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that, because I thought it was a perfect stoppage by Keith Peterson. When he was falling down, crying out in pain, like other referees would have, tell him to get back up and seen him take the damage. It was obviously he was done. The next leg kick was going to drop him again. So as much as Keith Peterson has made some terrible choices in refereeing, and as all referees has, this was one of his best performances for Keith Peterson. So I also picked Formiga, and I thought about the Brandon Moreno fight. I thought even though he lost that fight, I thought his fight was much closer. Like, that was a close fight. You could make an argument that he won that fight against Perez. 5 seconds in, 10 seconds in, I go, as soon as he started to kick, like the speed difference, I think Perez opened up with like a combination, or maybe it was a kick, and I said, yeah, I picked this one wrong. Like 10 seconds in, I was like, oh no, I picked this wrong. But the best performance of Perez, I think, was actually in the post fight, where he volunteered, saying, hey, I know Joseph Benavidez and Davis Figueiredo is fighting for the title. I will show up. I will make weight in case one falls out. I think that's brilliant, because it really is between probably him, Brandon Moreno, maybe the winner of Pantoja, Askarov, like who gets the next shot. Well, you're fighting right now. You have the limelight, and to put yourself in that position, that was absolutely brilliant. And let's not forget, David Figueiredo missed weight last time they were supposed to fight. Yep. That's why they're fighting for a vacant title. Be on weight, and he might fight Joseph Benavidez, a fight that was a controversial fight. That was his last loss. It was the one with the headbutt and then the punches to the back of the head. Absolutely, I think it's brilliant of Alex Perez to put him in that position.
Very smart move on his part, especially right now that so many things. It's not just somebody missing weight; it's somebody not being able to travel there. Like someone getting COVID-19. Like, there's even more things that can make this already unpredictable sport even more predictable. And like, to just insert yourself into like a top 5, top 10 matchup just by saying you'll be there. Yeah, genius move.
All right, before that, no, I said that a 30-27 scorecard was okay in the Neil Magny fight. This is the one that I think a 30-27 scorecard was absolutely atrocious. Alonzo Menifee versus Devin Clark. Devin Clark won decision. I scored at 29-28 for Devin Clark. But the first round, he did not win. He almost got knocked out. He had his eye closed from a punch. And one of the referees scored at 30-27 for Devin Clark. It looked like, I think he probably broke his orbital bone. Anyways, really, I don't know. Menifee, just a bad loss in my opinion for Menifee. I think he's a better fighter than Devin Clark. He has more power. He had him hurt. He just punched himself out, and he was never able to get that second win. I think Devin Clark made it possible by putting the pressure on him, and didn't he didn't let him just sit back and try to gather his breath.
Not much else to say than that.
Yeah,
I had Menifee. I assumed Menifee was going to knock him out in the first round. By about 4 minutes into the fight, where Menifee was, like you saw, oh man, his gas tank is already gone. This was obviously going one direction. It was encouraging to me to see that even in the third round, Menifee was still trying
yes.
to like, still trying to win the fight. Still, I mean, obviously the shots got super, super sporadic. I don't have the stats, but I feel like he threw 5 punches the whole last round.
Yeah.
But they were all had intent behind them. He still wanted to win. He still believed he could win. And if you're seeing a hot prospect who's losing his first fight, knows he's losing, that's what you want to see. You want to see some heart, and then you want to watch next time and see that he took some lessons out of it. Gas tank is never going to be a strong point for a guy like Benefield. I mean, the dude's got muscles on his muscles.
No, absolute brick, built like a brick shit house. I mean, that's. Yeah, it's funny you said that, because I'm actually, like you said, I'm much higher still on Benefield than I am on Devin Clark. I did think there was something good to take out of the fact that he was throwing high kicks. I like that. And also his takedown defense. He was stopping takedowns for Devin Clark, even when he was tired, even late in the fight.
Yes.
I think he might have got taken down once, and even then he got back up. So there was some promising thing. This might just be one of those like head scratching losses when we look like 3 years from now. I'll be like, wow, man, he lost to Devin Clark. And Devin Clark's father, I still think could beat Devin in a fight.
Oh man!
And speaking of family members, this is why I'm the best in the business. I make this transition. I threw the stat out there. I don't know if it's true, but Herbert Burns picked up exactly where his brother Gilbert Burns. Gilbert, obviously, the last fight of the last card won, and the first fight of this one was Herbert Burns. So I think this might be a record. I don't know, but first time brothers technically won back-to-back fights in the UFC. Herbert Burns beat Evan Dunham. Before we get to it, I want to talk about Evan Dunham. Imagine having a 2-year layoff and then get taken out in 80 seconds and submitted. I don't know why Evan Dunham thought. I don't know how old Evan Dunham is, but I think he's close to 40. I don't know why he thought
38
years old, taking 2 years off from the sport. I don't know why he thought a comeback was going to go well. But yeah, slick takedown. Extremely high level BJJ. Herbert Burns, he's got back-to-back wins. Obviously his brother Gilbert is right up there in the division at welterweight. How do you feel about Herbert? Like, do you view Herbert in the same potential?
No, but at the same time, nothing Gilbert was doing until he moved up to welterweight really gave us any indication that he had this in him. I mean, he was just another guy.
Yeah.
At 155
by Dan Hooker when Dan Hooker really wasn't Dan Hooker, like we weren't excited about him.
Yeah, I mean, so the easy answer is I don't know, but I'm ready to be surprised because a year ago I didn't think Gilbert Burns had this in him. So
yeah, I hope he does, because to me Gilbert and Herbert, they're so likable. They're like they're like likable brothers in the UFC.
Yeah.
He called out on the post-fight show. He called out Ryan Hall and Bryce Mitchell. He's not getting Ryan Hall. That's not happening. But no. Bryce Mitchell, listen, Bryce Mitchell, that is not the matchup. Like, Bryce Mitchell has no fun. I said, I think it might have been with you, where I said, I want Bryce Mitchell to face like the worst grappler in the division and just keep facing the worst grappler up to see how many twisters he can get. Herbert Burns is not that guy. Herbert Burns is former world champion in BJJ. Like, that's a terrible stylistic matchup for Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell run as far away from this matchup as possible.
Yeah, he didn't want that.
Yeah. All right, guys. So there you go. We have covered all the fights. Let's get to the fun stuff. Let's go to the section that we call Bulls and Bears. If you don't get the reference, it's a stock market reference. When things are on the rise, it is a bull market. When things are on the fall, it is a bear market. We'll go with our top 3 for each one. I will give my first 3. We'll start with the Bulls. These are the ones who are rising up. My number 3 Bull was Alex Perez. Obviously, the performance, highly ranked guy, the leg kicks, the call out, being ready for the title. That is my number 3 performance. My number 2 is the UFC bantamweight division. Henry Cejudo retired. I thought this division would not get a lot of hype, but people are going crazy for this division right now. And with Cody Garbrandt getting the knockout, Aljamain Sterling having a performance, TJ Dillashaw is only 6 months back from returning. This is a very hot division, and I still don't believe the Henry Cejudo won't ever fight in the UFC again. So that is a very fun division. But my number 1 bull, and this to me was a no-brainer, it's got to be Cody Stamann. To get a win after the death of his brother is absolutely sensational. So I know I'm getting a little sentimental on that one, but Sorry. Sir, I went with the obvious pick. Do you have any bulls?
Oh, well, leaving aside the ones you mentioned, all of which I agree with. I mean, Bull, if we're going to talk about where their stock was at the beginning of the night versus the end of the night, Cody Garbrandt is on there. I mean, the dude, and you and I have already talked about this, the finish isn't what really raises his stock because we already knew he could do that. But the whole fight answered quite a few questions, made me excited for his next fight. That a Sun Sao fight could have had me feeling the opposite way about him. Like, I don't need to see Garbrandt anymore. I want to see Garbrandt. I want to see him against contenders. I want to see if he can get another title shot. So stock up for him for sure. Stock up, Bull. Aljamain Sterling. I mean, best performance of his career in the biggest fight of his career. He was already getting hosed out of a title shot. Now it is just screaming robbery that two people are fighting for the title in a week or two, and it's not him. Those are the two I'll add. All
right, we'll go to the Bears. You have any Bears? Do you want me to go first?
Oh, I'll throw one out.
Okay.
Women's featherweight. It is on live support. We covered it. There are a grand total of 5 women in the division right now, really. There's 6 who have fought in the UFC featherweight division in the last 2 years, and one of them is Cyborg, who's gone. It's on live support. Its champ wants to go, take care of her baby. Yeah, let's put the division down for a nap for a couple of years.
Let me ask you this question. Say we took not Cyborg, but say we took the other 4 remainers, and we throw in, say, Macy Susan, whoever you want, a 5th bantamweight. If we had Amanda Nunes fight those fighters, switching off round to round for all 5 rounds, who wins?
Nunes.
Okay, there you go.
I mean, if you wanted to line them up, if you wanted to line them up from the worst to the best, Dumont, Viana, and go up and have her fight them one after the other, gauntlet style.
Yeah,
she might be able to finish the gauntlet if she can finish the first couple in the first round without getting tired.
I think she does. I mean, you'd have to if for them to have a chance, they might have to stack them like the Olympic style, where you put your best one last, just the first a good one for early, and you kind of stagger it a little bit. That might be the only way to beat Amanda Nunes. All right, so I'll give you my 3 Bears. My number 3 Bear, Chase Hooper. He's just not. He was not ready. He's not. I don't think he's ready for the UFC. I think he should go back to the developmental stage. It's not going to happen now that they brought him up, but terrible. This one pains me because I've been carrying their flag, but they have not been on a run lately. Fortis MMA. They went 0-2 on the night. There was another event where they went 0-3. I think they're they're on a little bit of a losing streak here. So
the one in February that I was at here in Houston, they went 0-3 on the night,
and that was in their close to their backyard.
Yeah, close to the. Well, I mean, it was for some of the fighters. It was the one that Alex Morano lost early, and he's a Houston guy. But yeah, all 3 other guys lost that night.
Yeah, I think that was Miles Johns was on that one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a guy that I'm really high on. So yeah, I'm the biggest flag bearer for Fortis MMA, but when I praise them when they're good, I gotta give them some slack. But my number 1 Bear, who had the worst night, I don't know if you saw this, but did you see the previews for the Unhinged movie starring Russell Crowe over and over again?
Yeah.
My number 1 Bear is Russell Crowe. Dude, how fat did Russell Crowe get?
Literally starting to look a bit like a bear. Is
that this is Gladiator. What happened to Russell Crowe? So my number 1 Bear. Man, Russell Crowe not doing good. So that's my number 1 Bear. There you guys have it. Let's get a grade for the card. I will go first. I'm giving it A+. I'm sorry, not A+, A-. I'll go A-. The main event was one-sided. The only reason why I wouldn't go higher with it, we didn't have that barn burner fight of the year, but when you have 2 knockouts of the year, performance of Aljamain Sterling, the sentiment of Cody Stamann, walk-offs by walk-off knockouts, first round stoppages, just a really, really good evening. So I'm going to go, while it didn't feel like a pay-per-view card, I think it did deliver if you pay the money, A-. What did you grade it?
I'd give it an A-, and I would say it is the second best event of the post-COVID era after UFC 249. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now that you've shamed me, I'm going to go back and watch the one fight I missed. Oh, by the way, ben.duffy@sherdog.com for all of your abuse. No, I thoroughly enjoyed this card. you know, I'm enjoying kind of the quiet arena cards. It's a different experience, and yeah, this one A-. Good stuff.
There you guys have it. We always challenge people. We like to do the most in-depth recap there is. That is a wrap of the very first Shillan and Duffy show on LoudMouth MMA podcast and Sherdog Radio Network. Just a personal note, I used to call in the Sherdog Radio Network. To now hosting a show on it, it is an absolute dream come true. I know you feel the same way, Ben.
Yes. You and I are both radio listeners and callers from way back in the day. Important, formative part of both of our development as fans. So I'm definitely happy and proud to be here with you.
Guys, reach out to either one of us. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see going forward. We're going to try to build this right back up. We're going to try to do as much things as we can. And, hey, guys, thanks for listening.